Okay.
So again, welcome everyone. It's 11, so we're going to get going. If you just want to mute yourself for the time being, please.
Yes.
Great. And so what I'm going to do real quickly is I'll just, since this is the first time meeting many of you, I'll kind of share a little bit about myself in a second. But I'll just share your name, and when that happens, just want to unmute yourself and just share your name, what parish you're from, and what your role is there. It's pretty simple. So the first person to my left is David Dumaine. So if you want to share, Dave.
Gotcha. I'm Dave Dumaine. Many of you know me. I've seen a lot of these faces before. I used to do confirmation retreats in Diocese for years. I'm part of the Emmaus program. But I used to live in southern Vermont and run a retreat center there. But because of COVID, we've closed our retreat center, and I'm moving back home down here. This is where I grew up, in Swansea, Massachusetts. I am at St. Mary's in Fairhaven, and also at Immaculate Conception Church in Eastern Massachusetts. And that's it. That's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. So next up on my screen is Meg Keenan.
Okay.
Ooh, let me unmute you, Meg. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now.
Very good.
Okay. All right. So I'm Meg Keenan. I'm from St. John the Evangelist and St. Vincent de Paul parishes in Attleboro.
Wonderful, Meg. And what do you do there, Meg?
So I'm the GRE here at St. John's and St. Vincent's.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Next, I have Patricia Colbert.
Is John Crow?
Hi, whoops. Hello?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, I'm Pat Colbert. I'm the Faith
Thank you.
Formation Director here at St. Mary's in Mansfield.
Wonderful, Patty. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Terry Ouellette.
Okay. I'm Terry Ouellette. I am the DRE for the Whaling City Catholic Community, it's a long name, which consists of St. Lawrence Martyr, Holy Name of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and St. Francis of Assisi, all in central western part of New Bedford.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And we are
Thank you,
newly
Terry.
put together.
Yes. Thank you for what you do there,
That's
Terry.
it. Yep.
Joanne Mercier.
Hi, Joanne Mercier here. I'm from the other side of New Bedford, the Catholic community of New Bedford North, which is the parishes of St. Mary's, Our Lady of Fatima, and St. Joseph, St. Therese, and I'm Director of Faith Formation.
Great, wonderful, Joanne. Thanks for joining us. Benny.
Hi, I'm Benny Costariti. I'm the Director for Parish Faith Formation at St. Mary's in South Dartmouth, which is very busy right now, considering we are in the midst of a pandemic.
Bless you. Well, thank you for serving Dartmouth.
Thank you.
Eric Rodriguez.
Hi, my name is Eric Rodriguez. I'm from St. Crystal Parish in Fall River, Mass. I am currently the sexton here at the parish, and I also do very other groups of things in the parish here.
All their duties as assigned. Good to see you, Eric. Jonathan Gallo.
So I'm Jonathan. I'm the Director of Faith Formation for the Catholic Community of Falmouth, which is St. Anthony, St. Patrick, St. Elizabeth Seton, and our 2 chapels. So
Great.
Cape Cod.
Yes, Falmouth. So thanks for joining us, Jonathan.
Welcome.
Renee D.
Hello, Renee D. from Our Lady of the Cape. Hello, Falmouth. Out here in Brewster, Massachusetts, Director of Religious Education and Faith Formation.
Wonderful, Renee. Glad you can make it. Patsy.
I'm Patsy. I am the Director of Faith Formation at St. Mary's in Norton.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Patsy. Mata Consacrata. Are you there?
Hi, I'm Mother Mate Consecrata. I'm the DRE at St. Anthony of Padua in New Bedford. And sorry, I'm going to be a shadow character. My camera's not working.
It's okay. Thanks so much for joining us, Mother.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
How are you guys?
Oh, Jen, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm on my phone.
It's all good.
I am the Faith Formation Coordinator at Corpus Christi Parish in Sandwich, Massachusetts.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Nate.
Hi, I'm Nate Schaff. I'm the Director of Youth Ministry, that's Confirmation, Middle School, and High School at Good Shepherd Parish on Martha's Vineyard.
Great. Deirdre. Ooh, you just gotta unmute yourself.
Thank you.
No problem.
Good morning. Deirdre Journay, Director of Faith Formation and Youth Ministry here at St. Pius in South Yarmouth.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks for coming. Paula. Oh, just gotta unmute as well.
Yeah, if you're interested, just give us a call and we'll email a registration.
Sorry about that. Paula
No, it's all
Gendron,
good.
Pastoral Associate at St. Julie, Billiot Parish in Dartmouth, also in Dartmouth, Benny. My birthday twin. So nice to be with everybody today.
Wonderful. Thanks, Paula. Kathleen.
I'm Kathleen Bendixson, and was very involved, coordinated a lot of Immaculate Conception, RCIA, baptismal prep, and family education. Presently, I just moved to Mashpee, and I'm not doing anything. I just moved 5 days ago. So anybody knows what's going on, I'd love to know. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for coming in, checking in, Kathleen. Joe Martino.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Nate of Dartmouth. I do the same thing that Nate does at the St. Julie's in Dartmouth.
Wonderful, Joe. Thanks for joining us. Sister Paulina. Oh, it's just got to mute. Well, sister, we can't hear you. Oh, dear.
Hi.
There you go.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm Sister Paulina here. I work at the diocese, and one of my interests and responsibilities is to accompany the Hispanic community, as well as the vocation ministry in the diocese.
Mm-hmm.
And I also work with the religious men and women in the diocese. So I am very happy to meet all of you and to hopefully be in touch for things that are related to the young people.
Great. Thank you, sister. Deacon Allen.
Yes, hello. Apparently my camcorder is not working here, but I believe you can't hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm serving here in the parish of St. Francis of Assisi in the Diocese of Rockville Center on Long Island. I'm the Director of Religious Ed. Thank you for inviting me in.
Of course. Thanks for being here, Deacon. And Shayna.
Hi, I'm actually Deirdre's assistant at St. Pius.
Well, thanks for joining, Shayna. And I think last but not least, Lisa Johnson. Are we there? All right, well, Lisa, if you can hear us, once you get some volume on, why don't you can introduce yourself. We'll kind of go from there. Well, thank you all for sharing. I know it kind of takes some time at the beginning, but since this is especially the first time that I'm meeting a lot of you, it is very helpful to me. So my hope is in the next hour or so that not only can you get to know who I am, but that also you have an opportunity to speak with your colleagues from other parishes as we kind of look at how we can best move forward together in the fall. So kind of taking stock of what has occurred will be the first part, and how we can move forward together. Because while we are in our parishes, and our parishes are very different, we are one diocese, and that is the hope that I know the bishop has shared with me is how we can all help one another to move forward together. So I'm going to share my screen real briefly. And we're just going to start in prayer together. We're going to start, since this is the month of the Rosary, it is also Respect Life Month, but I love the prayer of the Memorare. It's a prayer that my wife and I have prayed constantly, especially as we were dating, and so I thought we could use to simply begin prayer today. So let's just pray in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
And let us pray together. Remember, most gracious
Virgin Mary, that never was it known
No,
anyone
that anyone
who
who fled to thy protection,
or thy help.
implored thy
sought
help,
thy help, or sought
thy
thy intercession, was left unaided. Inspired
inspired by this
confidence, I fly unto thee,
O Virgin of
lost a
Virgins, my
picture,
mother.
mother.
my mother.
To thee do I
I
come,
cry, before thee I stand,
stand,
sinful and sorrowful. O Mother,
Mother of the Word
I
incarnate,
lost a picture,
despise
not my
petitions,
but in thy mercy,
thy mercy,
Hear
hear
and
and
answer
answer.
me.
Amen.
And
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy
in the Holy
Spirit.
Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
So I asked all of you to share a little bit about yourselves, but it's nice to, I didn't want to just talk about myself, so I put together a Menti quiz to see who could guess the best about me. So if you go on to Menti and you type in the code 2555334, I'm going to bring it up on the screen so you can see it.
There it is. Oh, he just put it in.
Put it back up. So see here, the code on the top of the screen is 2555334.
I don't
They'll ask you to add a name. Great, we're jumping on.
Okay.
Right.
David, I signed in. I created an account. Where would I put that number?
Oh, so if you just go to menti.com, so you don't need an account, just go to menti.com, just put in the code.
I already did that. So,
Okay,
because
no
I'm a
worries.
geek, I already did that.
You're wonderful. Yeah, if you just go to menti.com, it should show up a little box to put in the code.
Yes, it doesn't. So that's why I'm trying to figure out. I've got my presentations, inspiration, and branding and colors. So I'm trying to
The
figure out.
problem is you're logged in. You don't need to be logged in.
Okay.
And it just appears at the very top of the page.
Okay, so I should
It
log
might
out.
put the search bar or
Yes,
ask you to put
yeah.
your code in.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll log out. All right, there it is. Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you, Patsy. Thank you, Joanne. All right, so let's take a couple more seconds to log on. You can always join in after the fact with your code. All right, so we're just going to get started. All right, so there'll be a couple questions that'll show up on your screen. So what parish should I grow up going to in Massachusetts? Take a guess. Let's see who can get that. 20 seconds. Five seconds. Great. 5 people. Yes, Espiritu Santo. So that was my parish growing up when I was born and raised here in the diocese, the Espiritu Santo Parish. All right. So good job. So Eric, Patsy in the lead. Good guesses. So take a guess. What high school do you think I attended within Massachusetts? Would it be Stang, Durfee, Diamond, or Conley? Great. Yes, so I was a Cougar growing up at Bishop Conley High School. Was very happy to be there. So how are we doing? Who knows me? Or at least who read the memo from the bishop? Eric and Patsy, good job. So after college, I worked with a religious order in their youth ministry. So was it with the Jesuits? Was it with the Capuchin Franciscans? Was it with the OFMs, the Franciscan Regulars? Or was it with the Dominicans? It is the Capuchins. So I did work for Franciscans, but was with the Capuchins in the Hudson Valley at Capuchin Youth and Family Ministries. So it was a good time. All right, Joanne's in the lead. So question 4 of 5. So most recently, what diocese or archdiocese was I working for? Was it New York, Albany, Newark, or Hartford? Yes, Newark in New Jersey. So I've worked in all of them except Hartford, but Newark was where I was most recently. Awesome. Great. Ooh, last question. Let's see. Will it be Joanne, Patsy, or Jen? Last question. How many children do you think I have? 1, 2, 3, or 5? Two. Yes. Bless all your hearts. Bless my wife if we had 5. If you had 5, that's wonderful. So who is our winner? Joanne. Good job, Joanne. So Jan, remind me at the end of the of our presentation today, you're gonna go to a little special something. So remind me at the end of it. So not trying to be self-centered at all, but part of it is to make it at least fun, to learn a little bit about myself that I've asked about yourself, and also show a different app. One of the reasons why I share this is for those of us who has been in ministry for any amount of time, we know ministry doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, it isn't that we just work for Jesus, or we work for the church, or we work for a parish all this time, and like we don't have family, that we don't have individuals that we are responsible for, that we have to care for. So I share this. This is my family. That's my wife, Teresa, and she's holding my son, Gabriel. When he was 2, he's now 3. We were at Day of Portugal in Newark before COVID. And that is my newly born daughter, our daughter Francesca, who was born in May. So we have a son and a daughter. So when I think of ministry and what I have to do to take care of ministry, I also have to consider my family, my kids, that everything I do as a job also affects them. And I'm very blessed for the wife that I have. She hasn't left me yet during ministry. She was the kind of person that while I was leading middle school nights, she was leading high school nights pregnant with a toddler. So it oftentimes takes having the right person at your side. But especially as we look forward to the fall, we have to both know ourselves, both know what keeps us going, what drives us, what's our purpose. If we don't have a general and a good sense of purpose and can't identify what that is, it's going to be very hard to continue doing ministry going forward. It can be very easily to become burnt out. So I always turn to my family as an inspiration, as a sense of my own purpose. So I ask you, in the coming weeks, if you haven't already, what is it that is your purpose? What is it, the things that you have to keep in mind as you do ministry? Perhaps you have young children, you have to consider what childcare is. Perhaps you have a parent or a neighbor or someone that you take care of. Who are these individuals that you have to be mindful of? Who is it that drives you as you go into the fall? So we're going to hop back on to another mentee. I promise this one's not about me. It's not a competition. But this is to start our conversation going about taking stock. So I'm going to bring up that screen, 55, 21, 23, 6. So I'll bring that up. New mentor. So just add in the code. I won't ask you to put in a name this time, but just different questions to kind of answer out. So again, what are things that have kept you going during the past several months? Great. God, family, friendships, mass, spouse, hope, desire to care and support. We got some more for family and hope. Daily scripture, community, trust, wife, a lot of family, love of church, bringing faith to families, friendships, prayer, your team at church. Definitely see family and hope as good themes. That's great. So next question, how are you feeling right now? On a scale of 1 to 5. You're doing great? Feeling terrible? You need more coffee? All right, so we're doing pretty good for the most part. Some of us are not feeling too well. I apologize. Some of us need more coffee. I can second that. All right, so we're pretty in the middle. Fair enough. We're doing pretty much in the middle. What is your favorite resource? So if you had to share one resource that you've used in ministry, just the name of it, what would be your favorite one, your go-to resource? Kim Kit and Bible Project. UCAT. Laudate, great app. Word on Fire, your coworkers, your network. Rosary, my pastor. Formed. Word on Fire, we said that. McKeenan. Yes. Rosary, Bible Project. Scripture. Life Team. A lot of Formed. Bible. Source for Youth Ministry. A lot of Formed, a lot of Scripture. USACC. Music. Great. So a lot using Formed. Formed in Scripture. All right, last one. What are you most proud of that you have done? So in the past several months, amidst everything, what is it that you're most proud of that you have done? Still standing, yes. Survived. Balancing work and family, yes, great accomplishment. Assist parish via technology. Cooperative teaching. Create our new faith formation program, yes. Implement a new master catechist program. Clean the sacraments. Yes, we have a lot of parishes who have been catching up from the spring. First communions and confirmation sacraments. Wonderful. Implement a new program. Set up live stream for my collaborative and formed a solid team for faith formation. Great. Getting teens to help at the food pantry. Wonderful. Any last ones? So these are all wonderful accomplishments. One of the things that I bring this up is you've had to do a lot in the past couple months. You've had to really weather and really reconfigure everything you had to do. Some of you had to change what kind of was stable for you for the past several years. Some of you were new to positions you were coming in and had to kind of get the lay of the land rather quickly. So it's always important to not just say, we can always be the first people to say what I've done wrong, but what are the things that I've done well are also really important to gather. So great. Excellent. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to break out into a couple rooms. I'm going to ask you to kind of discuss a couple questions. So once you're in your room, identify one person to kind of take notes. And now that you've kind of heard from everyone anonymously, share what have been some of the things that have worked for you thus far. Are there things that perhaps haven't worked for you thus far? And what are maybe some wisdom you've gained, things that you've learned thus far about preparing for programs, or if you've already started your programs from the start of your programs? It's pretty much what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what have you learned thus far from starting preparing your program. So I'm going to break you up into those groups, have someone who will kind of be a general note taker, and you can kind of share when we can come back. I'm just going to move. All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So for those, so if there's one person in each room that was able to kind of summarize, take note, would you want to just kind of briefly share what were some of the things that you guys discussed in terms of what you've learned or what has or hasn't worked? And you can just unmute your mic to go.
Hi.
Hi, Patty.
So we started with listing the pros, which is always good. So we came up with pretty much, it was, came down to setting up new programs, and each parish is doing it a little differently. We have a new Master Catechist program, we have hybrid programs, we have live streaming the Mass, and really focusing on students going to Mass with them doing weekly journal entries.
Mm-hmm.
Other parishes are focusing on reaching out to teens, working with them at the food pantry, which enabled them to develop a relationship so that will build the youth ministry team. Others were taking this opportunity to attend webinar participations at the national level. And one parish is focusing on Hispanic ministry.
Wonderful.
So that's, and then the cons was just gathering people together and getting to know people, and reaching out and contacting people, emails, people not responding to emails, having wrong email addresses, and those types of things. And then seeing perhaps a drop in enrollment in religious ed, which is something we don't want.
Sure. Thank you, Patty, for sharing.
You're welcome.
Anyone else like to share from their group? Briefly.
Our group.
Hi, Renee.
Hi. So our group talked about what was working, and the one thing that they came up first was that our catechists and everything they're doing are working, because they're coming together and they're stepping up to our new formats, which is very impressive. Everybody's been patient and understanding, experiencing a new ideas, cooperation of pastors. Some of us have changed our programs, the curriculums using Chosen and Ascension, and we're happy with those changes. There's a mix of people doing in-person, hybrid, remote, a combination of those. And we're also having in-person parent meetings held in the church, social distanced. So that's what's working for us.
Wonderful.
Our two major concerns were a drop in registrations, that we're not seeing as many as we did last year. Nobody really knows why, whether it's pandemic or some other reason. And the registration changes and sign-ons and getting the parents through the process has not worked 100%. We're still going. But some of us haven't started our programs yet, so we've got time to make that better.
Great.
And we all decided that we need more patience.
Yes. As a son of Portuguese immigrants, I concur times 10. I love being Portuguese, don't get me wrong, but I definitely concur to that. Wonderful. Was one more group who wanted to share? No? We're good? If not, we'll continue.
No, we will.
Okay.
we kind of lost the question in getting into the rooms.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But what we shared was what we are doing at our parishes. Some of us are doing remote, some of us are doing face-to-face, some are doing monthly Zoom sessions, and then alternating that with parent-led home sessions at home, online sessions. One of Patsy is using Edmodo to do online with her kids. Mater is doing, they are doing, let me see if I got this right, 1 and 2 and 8 and 9, so the sacramental prep, and then using Sophia Institute for the other children online. So a mix of just about everything, from online to remote to face-to-face to partial meeting, full meeting, parent meeting, trying it all.
Yes, and that's probably the theme I'd say of the fall, is trying it all, or trying what we can. Well, thank you all for sharing. Hopefully it was at least a good opportunity to hear from one another. So I'm just going to share a couple of general thoughts in terms of taking stock and moving forward as we kind of continue our session. So what has or hasn't changed? I would dare postulate there are 5 things that have remained the same in general. And I would say that number 1, a general sense that one needs to first feel that they belong before the sense of believing. And really where that comes to is, it used to be when we were growing up Catholic that I was just Catholic and I just went to church, right? We've all probably seen or experienced this, but yet if I don't feel connected to the community, then I probably won't have a great desire to want to learn what it is to believe I haven't feel welcomed. Why is that so important to bring up now, especially if we already know it, is what is probably one of the most difficult things to do now is, how do you help people feel connected? How do you help people feel that they belong to a community that they perhaps cannot attend in person? That's probably one of the greatest struggles we've been facing the past months is just that. But it's important to remember, while a lot of this will take certainly creativity and innovation, we'll talk about some of the opportunities in a moment, is to not forget that we need to make sure that people still feel that they belong and are connected to our community. Number 2, experiences of God are still essential. So we're still a very incarnational faith. So we know, that while our faith is beautiful, because we're an incarnational faith, our faith needs to be lived, it needs to be experienced, it needs to be touched and felt. Again, why is it important to remember? Because what is so hard in a socially distanced culture to how can we touch, feel, and experience? I think for those of you who have had First Communions and confirmations the past couple of weeks who haven't been able to do it in the spring, that has been such a positive experience. Hopefully, logistics aside, where individuals could finally again experience, and hopefully can be a call back to the liturgy, to the Mass, to receiving the Eucharist for those who are safe. But it's important that as we move forward, we've gotten to a point hopefully where we've said, this is what I'm doing. Great, that's a kind of our standard. But beyond that, as we move forward into Advent, that's the next season coming up. Not to already get people thinking, we just got started. What do we mean talking about Advent? But even in the back of your mind, as we go to Thanksgiving and Advent, the idea of what experiences, either from afar, in person if allowed, or even virtually, can we create to ensure that our faith is still experiential, because experiential is key. A third one, we've seen this before, I'm sure anyone who's been familiar with Christian Smith's work, he just released a new work last year, Religious Parenting, out of Notre Dame. Really what it comes down to is this: if you want to know, excuse the typo, if you want to know what a young person's faith life is like, look at their parents. A lot of parishes, you probably had to have transitioned in one shape or form, even out of necessity, to more of an at-home piece of it. That's a great opportunity. Catholic Sprouts, if you're familiar with that company, Nancy B., they create a lot of resources for kids. They just started what's called the Domestic Church Project, which are trying to work with our Sunday Visitor on to launch, hopefully, in the spring, about how we can help our parents during this time. Because what is it? If we feel overwhelmed, especially those of us who are parents most likely also feel overwhelmed. But we know we're in this job, and we know more than anything else, what is it that helps us during this time? If you ask a parent, why do you want my kid to have faith? Well, I want them to have faith during their tough times. This is a tough time. Certainly we want faith beyond that, but this is a tough time. So now more than ever, is an opportunity to invite parents into that faith rather than saying, well, no, it's one more thing. Certainly as a parent, so my wife is a nurse. She worked in Newark when COVID happened. I was in parish ministry when this happened, so I can certainly appreciate where you're coming from. So trust us when we say we can certainly appreciate having little kids, being medical professionals, working for the church. This can be overwhelming. But if it has not been for our faith, we wouldn't be able to handle any of this. So it's something we should make sure we still give to parents, not be afraid to give. Lastly, developing a mentor culture is so needed. And if you've noticed some of the trends in the past couple of years, a lot of things, especially the conversation around confirmation, has led to more of a mentorship culture. Why is this such an opportunity now? Because with the rules of social distancing, because of the rules of capacity sizes, it naturally almost forces our hand for in-person things, and even virtually as much as we can, to be small. And that provides such an opportunity for active mentorship, where there's a trusted adult and trusted adults that they can turn to. And if you followed any of the research that's come out of the Springtide Research Institute, it's that the more trusted adults that kids have access to, the less they'll feel lonely, the less they'll feel stressed, the more they'll feel supported. And so even in whatever small ways you're already doing, know you're already doing such great work to help young people, to help young families during the fall as they feel overwhelmed. So in many ways, it's to say that families need you, the church, more, not less. Even if they don't necessarily see it that way, don't get discouraged. They need the church more, not less, in terms of what the statistics are showing. And of course, what hasn't changed? Jesus. I always love this passage from Hebrews. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Do not be carried away by varied or strange teachings. No matter what comes, remember Jesus' passage of the rock and of building a house on the rock and the sand. If we build our house on the rock, if we build our programs, our faith, our church, our parish on the rock, on Christ, it doesn't matter what will happen. We already know what the other side looks like. So what can we control? So 4 things for moving forward. The first thing I would encourage you to think about for moving forward is, what can I control? And sometimes that's the most we can do, is focusing on what is it that I control. I may not be able to control how many families come back to the program this year, but I can ensure that the ones who are here are ministered to and feel connected. I may not be able to control if families come back to Mass, but I can try to work to ensure that they have safe access to Mass, whether in person or virtually, and to the sacraments. I may not be able to control having everyone back in person in my programs, but I can control making sure I have good communication, reaching out to them, making sure they feel connected. I know a lot of parishes, when this first occurred, reached out to just their parishioners to check in on them, to call them, to see how they are. I may not be able to control the messages families are hearing around them, both in a time of COVID, in a time of election, in a time of going back to school, but I can ensure that they receive encouragement and the joy of the gospel. We can always ensure that they hear the truth that is Jesus Christ. So sometimes, yes, it is frustrating, the things I can't control, but in identifying that, owning that, what is it that I can control, and can I do that well? Then nothing that I would suggest in terms of how can we move forward is, how can we identify our assets, and from our assets identify opportunities. So what do I mean by that? The things that we have, the things that we know we have. For instance, some of you have even mentioned this. Who are my master catechists or volunteers? Maybe not all my catechists came back, but there's some really great people, and perhaps even non-catechists, but just wise people that I turn to as a mentor in the parish. How can I highlight their skills and passion for evangelization? It could, as some of you have already done, videotape lessons with some of these. It could be creating a message series where they hear from different voices of the parish that they would have otherwise never heard about. It could be that, I may not have catechists at classes, but I could take this year to form catechists. There was one parish that I worked with once that they took off 1 year doing confirmation. They said, we're not going to do youth ministry this year. We're going to take the year to plan it. And with the pastor's blessing, they went forward and did it. If for as many things that this year allows us not to do, it could open up doors to things we could do. So if you've never been able to do formation, perhaps that's the thing to do. And that's something that our office can help with. If that's something you want for your parish, we could go in and design formation specific to you and your catechist and your volunteers and run it for you if you'd like. Who are the great youth and young adults and families. You know, we sometimes with parishes who are going into live stream capabilities have these individuals help set it up. You know, some of you had mentioned food pantries. How can we share their testimony? Testimony, again, is essential in terms of communicating the faith. There's always a shift in the church's teaching between what we call kerygma and didache. Kerygma being evangelization, didache being teaching. And before you get to the teaching, there has to be evangelization. And so as a teacher, what do? You first model before you explain and check for understanding. So how can you use the testimony of individuals who can either jump on a Zoom, pre-record, or even be there in person, socially distanced, to model what it is that we're trying to communicate? You know, if we have contact information for families, how can we, again, encourage them from afar, check in on them, let them know they're not forgotten? I knew of one parish that every month would send out something to their families, even if it was a card. And I know this happened a lot with graduations. This happened a lot with Easter. There was one parish that started a ministry with people who are entrepreneurs, for individuals who needed a job, to be able to connect them if there was unemployment because of COVID. So depending on who you have and identifying people you never even thought of but are in your parish, what new ways can we help families? Of course, if we have social media and streaming abilities, how can we expose them to other prayer experiences and devotions? You know, there's some parishes that would now, Mass being able to be live streamed from their parishes, incorporate that live stream into part of their program, where they can attend, they can watch from home, and that the gospel and the message that the pastor gives is part of their catechesis, listening to it, answering questions on it even. Are there peoples or populations near me that need help? So, you know, someone mentioned a food pantry. We had partnered with a Presbyterian church in our town that they couldn't do their mission trip. So what they did was socially distanced mission teams that people would sign up for that went out to do projects that could be done safely. So they identified, for instance, medical professionals in their community who haven't just had time to even like mow their lawn, or elderly shut-ins that couldn't even like do yard work outside, and did it for them. And that was something they could do in small groups that could be socially distanced, that could be safe. And there were some things that they did that weren't socially distanced, such as there was a assisted living facility nearby they partnered with to almost make pen pals for some individuals who are there, so that they have that connection. Again, that experiential piece. And lastly, if you can meet in person, how can we think small? The University of Steubenville had created this campaign called Discipleship Quads, which was basically there'd be 4 individuals that come together, and it was supposed to create organic support systems for individuals apart from their chaplain's office. And they gave materials and they had rules. If there was less than 3 individuals, you couldn't meet. But the idea was that they're creating support systems outside of the classroom, if you will, even which could be mimicked for parents, it could be mimicked for marriage prep, it could be mimicked for RCIA, where they're coming together and really supporting one another. There's materials they work through, but it's not just another small group. Rather, the goal of it is to create a community. And what an opportunity we have, especially if we have to only be in small spaces. And last things is, how can we look at engagement as a means for growth? So we can't control perhaps, you know, who's signing up, but for those that we have, how can we engage them to lead to growth? So what are families' experiences of Mass? You know, there's some parishes that are still doing Masses outside in parking lot, and they find more people are attending there than in person because they feel safe. Or there are some parishes who, before and after Mass, you know, they might be Facebook live streaming their Mass, but before and afterwards, they have a talk back, a Q&A, a way almost in lieu of hospitality after Mass, where they have an opportunity to hear from different people at the church, different pastors for even, to make it more of an experience of being at church and having that connectedness that they might miss otherwise. How are we engaging young families beyond the curriculum? You know, those parish that I used to work for, they would do these contests for little kids, and they'd have winners. So for Easter, it was an Easter contest where they could have decorate their lawns for Easter, or decorate a door for Easter. They'd send in submissions, and they'd give out a chocolate bunny that was like 2 feet tall to the winner. Or they created a coloring page of the facade of the church in a similar way, and the winners got, you know, gift cards to ice cream. Is this catechesis? You know, probably not in the strictest sense that we might think of, but this, again, is engaging individuals. It's helping people feel connected. You know, if you already have your program set up, great. but how do we make sure people feel connected beyond that, so that way they're still part of the community whether they're there or not? How are we creating original content? Original content statistically generates more engagement online than shared content. So for instance, even a parish staff each taking on their favorite saint and creating a brief 30 to 60-second video of their favorite saint or favorite Bible passage to share. Some parishes have already done this, or I've seen some do a book recommendation. It's a great way too for parishes to get to know the people that work there in that church that they probably otherwise wouldn't come in contact with. And lastly, how are we inviting people to be part of what we're doing? There's some parishes that have taken on a cost with live streaming capabilities, and so they've made an ask. Listen, have you enjoyed our masses? Have you enjoyed our online programs? Would you consider supporting it financially? Or would you consider donating your time to make sure it can be run? To sanitizing pews, we're meeting again in faith formation programs. We're so blessed to have these numbers, but we need help in cleaning afterwards. We need help in preparing these kinds of spaces. And again, making sure people are informed with what it is you're doing. Unfortunately, especially in parishes, there can be a sense of silos where it's, this ministry always used this space and this ministry always used this space. But now during the time of COVID, we have to really use the bigger space together, because that's might only be available for social distance. So being able to communicate what is actually occurring, and how, instead of saying you can't come, right, how can you be a part of it and help us to do this, especially if we need help? And I would say last thing to make sure to do is focus on Jesus for your own self. Have you been able to go back to worship and to Mass? Have you been able to receive the sacraments? Have you been able to pray? Are there faith resources you need? We spend so much time focusing what resources we can give other people, to families. What resources do you need in your own faith life? And a lot of times, and I can fall into this trap as well, sometimes we focus so much on I work for Jesus or I work for the church, but how can we also be with him? How can we also be in a relationship with him? And this is all something we all know, but I can speak for myself. I'm the worst offender. I tell people to spend time in prayer, and then I'm the worst offender in that. I spend time telling people to make sure that they go to church, but then I go to church and then my mind's off in a million places. So and I say it from my own experience, when I've put Christ in that center, when I've worked on that relationship first, it's affected my ministry in so many positive ways. So I share that again with you and share, how are you being fed? I know we're kind of short at the end of time, but I wanted to give one last opportunity so that way you can kind of share one another if you're willing. If you have to go, I understand. But if you've shared a lot about what you've done, but take a second as you leave here from today's session and move forward. What is it, something that you've wanted to try, haven't been able to do? And is that an opportunity to collaborate with someone else? Perhaps there's something you've wanted to do and someone else in your small group's already doing it. And perhaps how can you make a connection to follow up with one another to help each other do that? Perhaps there's something that more and more person has the same idea. Great. How can we probably follow up together to talk about that? So I'm going to just X out for a second. We're just going to go in for about 5 minutes and just think, is there something that you could take away from one another, or that you all have the same idea that you can support one another in doing? Great. Welcome back. So is there anyone who wants to share one last thing that they wanted to work on or wanted to collaborate on? Is there anything that came up?
All right, I'll start. Oh,
you're good, Patty.
Should I start? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll start again. I guess what the main point that came out was just getting families more involved in various ways. You can do that by providing resources to them, which was CatholicMom.com came up, formed.org came up, and maybe having a dedicated person to talk with parents who just want to, maybe just talk about their faith and feel more comfortable talking one-on-one to a person versus in a large group. But getting the families more comfortable to come into church, feel confident, welcomed, and so forth.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patty. Anyone else?
We were talking about how to get families to come even outside for socially distanced things. We recently did a sidewalk chalk rosary around the parking lot.
Wonderful.
But then I was also looking to see if anybody does like a trunk or treat or a saint parade or a something. So if anybody has something like that and they have directions on how to do it, you pass it along my way, I would appreciate it.
Great. That's a good idea. Thank you, Patsy. Anyone else? All right. Just as we finish, so thank you guys for coming, for sharing with one another. Hopefully it's been helpful. Next week is kind of more of the expert content piece. So this is kind of a preliminary piece to get us to start thinking. But next week, Jared Dees, who's some of you might be familiar with, is creator of The Religion Teacher. He's worked with Ave Maria Press, but now he just works specifically with Religion Teacher. He is going to be our speaker. So he will be here same time next week at 11. So if you registered for that, it's a separate link. If you haven't registered for that, you can go back on the Faith Formation website where you registered for today's session, and you can register there to get the link. And his is going to be focusing on both virtual catechesis and engaging the whole family. So some to what your point is, how can we engage families during this time? That's going to be part of what he's going to be speaking. So I'm going to share with him some of what you guys have shared with today. And he had also created a survey, some of which is information that you have shared today, but he's created a survey so that way he can also have feedback from all of you prior to the session to make sure that the session is kind of focused on what you need. So I asked you guys, if you haven't already, it was in the reminder email this morning, but it's there again. Just complete that survey prior to Tuesday's session at 11. And again, register online, you'll get the link for that. And Joanne, is Joanne still here? Joanne Mercier? Joanne, I haven't forgotten about you, so because you won, I'll send you a copy of one of Jared Dees' new books, Take and Eat, which is Bible stories for kids about Eucharist. So fun little treat. Thank you for what you do. We'll do another one of those next week. And on the week after, we'll give a little giveaway. So that one's yours, Joanne. But again, to all of you, thank you guys. And of course, if there's anything you need individually, feel free to call me or contact me. I'd be more than happy to either speak with you on the phone, come out to you in person, social distance. I've been spending time meeting with some different pastors, so I'd be more than happy to meet with you. And especially if you just feel like you're struggling or you don't know what to do or you need ideas, more than happy to either on Zoom or in person just sit down with you, because you shouldn't have to feel like you're by yourself in this. So thank you again for joining. That's it for today. Register for next week, and hopefully we can see you then.